before we get into the root of the everything is fuck, maybe I'd love to just hear, maybe for anybody who's listening to this who might be looking to aspire to be a thought leader, wants to put themselves as a personal brand, do you have any word of advice for people that might be following a similar path as what you've done?
It's hard because the best advice, it changes so often. When I started, you could still, if you posted a really good article on Facebook, you could get a million people to your website. That those days are long gone. The game has changed quite a bit today. I think the most important things to ask yourself is, number one, what am I saying, or what can I say that needs to be said but nobody else is saying? Like, that's the question that I always come back to with myself. What needs to be put out into the world but nobody's putting it out there? And then number two, where do I have an advantage in terms of like distribution? So it's like, if you're starting from scratch, starting a blog and posting an article on Facebook, like, that's not going to get you anywhere these days, because you're not just competing with me, you're competing with like the New York Times and Time Magazine and Forbes and all these other publications. So you're not going to have an advantage there. So you need to ask yourself, where am I going to have an advantage? Am I going to have an advantage on TikTok? Am I going to have an advantage on video? Is my advantage short form content? Like, am I really good at like that pithy sentence that sticks with people? Or is my advantage long form content? Am I really good at putting together like a 90-minute podcast that just deep dives into a single subject? Like, you need to ask yourself these kind of more strategic questions of like, where are your strengths, and then like, how do you maximize them in terms of like getting the message out there?
Yeah. I mean, people do look at what was happening back then. And like you said, things have changed so much. But it's great to see that if you stay focused on that topic and really say the things that don't get said by anybody else, there is a way to stand out, which in some way kind of parallels as to how your books have really stood out, because you've thrown the F-bomb right in the title, which I'm sure your publishers were rarely thrilled about when you suggested it. And I remember, I believe the first book you wrote, which is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which is the one that, really, exploded around the world. I feel like your title was originally something around values, which is kind of a bit of the context of the book. So can you unpack that for us a little bit?
Sure. So originally, I started writing the book before I had the title. In fact, I had a terrible title that I don't remember now, but when I was writing it, but it was essentially, it was a book about values. Like, when you ask yourself, like, what is not giving a fuck, or like giving a fuck about something? Essentially, it's choosing what do you care about. Like, you have a limited amount of energy in the day, so where are you going to direct that energy? What is valuable enough to deserve that energy? Essentially, is like, what is worth giving a fuck about. So I had written hundreds of pages of this book already, and I started to run into a problem, which is like, nobody wants to be lectured about their value. Like, there's nothing sexy about like, oh my god, this guy is going to tell me about my values for the next 200 pages. And so it's almost like, I think if there's anything that like I have done very well in my career, it's finding kind of important but boring topics, and then finding a way to make them sexy and exciting for people, like almost like tricking people into reading them or listening to them. Sometimes I think of it as like a Trojan horse. It's like, so the title, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, it's very appealing. Like, everybody wants to not, like, everybody worries about shit that they wish they didn't worry about. Everybody is stressed about stuff that they wish they weren't stressed about. And so it's kind of this ubiquitous desire that people have. And so they pick up the book and they're like, man, I wish I didn't give such a fuck. But then you get about 20 pages into it, you realize like, oh crap, I have to choose what I care about. And fuck, I'm choosing these things right now. Oh shit, this is my fault, isn't it? Like, it's like, it slowly, eases you into the bitter truth that you need to hear. So I try to conceptualize a lot of the stuff that I write about in that way. It's like, what's the sugar coating? Like, what's the sugar that helps the medicine go down, or whatever.